Hey, y'all. As a growing family, my husband and I love game night, especially when it's Wayfair edition.
Let's do it. You gotta name as many Wayfair furniture and decor categories as you can. Ready? Go.
Sofas, bar stools, beds, ottomans, outdoor seating, bookshelves, kitchen tables, garden sheds, mid-century modern lamps.
Time. Nice. You got 9 out of a lot. Not too bad. Keep practicing by visiting wayfair.com, where you can shop every style for every home.
Wayfair, every style, every home.
Why is it so hard to just sit in a room with no headphones, no books, no nothing, just spend time with yourself and genuinely ask yourself, what do I want? And now you may not have answers the first day, but over a period of time you would if you consistently practice it. People won't do that.
Welcome to Paper Napkin Wisdom, where we share pearls of wisdom shared by some of the world's top entrepreneurs, leaders, and difference makers. Here's your host, Govind Jayaraman.
Hi, I'm Govind Jayaraman, and this is Paper Napkin Wisdom, episode 341. And as you begin listening to this conversation, you just may notice something interesting is happening inside you. Because sometimes when we hear a simple phrase, it opens a really big door. And today's napkin is one of those kinds of doors. Living a purpose-focused life. As you hear those words, you may already begin to wonder what would shift if you truly lived that way. You might start to reflect how you're spending your time, who you're giving your attention to, and what you're saying yes to, and what you might quietly know needs a gentle no. So, my guest today is an incredible man and a great friend. His name is Dandapani. He's a former Hindu monk, entrepreneur, and a teacher of focus. He has spent years guiding leaders around the world toward clarity. And in this episode, you'll discover how focus isn't just about productivity, it's about presence. Dandapani was on the podcast a long time ago, and since that time, he's been on a global journey where he's truly impacted some of the biggest stages and the biggest places in the world. And you'll feel his presence. You'll feel his alignment. You'll hear his understanding that life isn't short, but it is finite. And when you really begin to feel that, something inside you naturally starts to prioritize a little differently. You might notice yourself considering, what is my purpose, really? And is it dependent on something that could disappear? Or is it rooted in something deeper, something steady? As you listen, you might find yourself becoming more aware of your own patterns, where your attention drifts, where willpower strengthens, where your life feels full and where it feels completely scattered. Because once you begin to see it, you can't unsee it. And sometimes that awareness is enough to start living differently. So as you settle into this conversation, you don't have to try to change anything. Just listen and allow whatever is meant to resonate to resonate. Let's dive into my conversation with Dandapani. Dandapani, welcome to Paper Napkin Wisdom. I'm just honestly giddy just saying that again. It's so great to have you here.
Thank you, Govind. So great to be back. I kind of remember when we had our first conversation on your podcast.
Well, we still had to, turn the gears of podcasts back then when we did it the first time.
Yes.
It was so manual. It's amazing the journey that you have been on, the impact that you've made in the world since we last spoke. You've been again, I've actually got goosebumps even thinking about how many people you have helped with your message and messages and the power of focus, and the impact you've had on my life when I'm not around you. And so I'm grateful to have you here face to face again.
Thank you, Govind. You were deeply instrumental in all of this. I think I first got in touch with you maybe about 3 years after I left the monastery, or even 2.5 years after I left the monastery. You had reached out to invite me to come and speak at this EOGLC thing. And I know there was some pushback from some people, but you were very determined to have me there.
Yes.
And that was life-changing for me. And that really got me into this trajectory of speaking and working with entrepreneurs and companies around the world. So thank you for that. You played a massive role. I don't know if you know.
No, I
Yeah.
don't. But you've played a massive role in thousands and thousands of people's lives, including mine. So I'm very grateful for that. And it's very appropriate, given the napkin that you're going to share with me, that you've shared with me here, which is living a purpose-focused life. Why
Yeah.
did you share that with me?
Well, for me, the greatest impetus for leading a purpose-focused life is that we have one life. Even though I'm a Hindu and I believe in reincarnation, I do have one life as Dandapani. And my life is not short, contrary to what most people like to say is that life is short. I believe life is not short, but life is finite. When I'm stuck in traffic jam for 3 hours, I never think it's short, right?
Right.
But it's definitely finite. There's a clear, definitive end to it. So for me, the question is, if I only have X amount of days on this planet, how do I want to live it? What is the life that I need to live that would give the best outcomes? For that, I need clarity of purpose. And when I have clarity of purpose, I'm clear. My purpose helps me define my priorities, which then allows me to focus on my priorities. And when I can focus on my priorities, I live a life that is happier, more fulfilling, more rewarding, a more content life. And because I'm living that way, the people around me get impacted by that as well. But if I don't have clarity of purpose, then I'm just pulled in every which direction. And I could go down a path for 5-10 years and then realize this is not even aligned with what I want in life. So I've just wasted 10 years of this finite amount of time that I have in this planet.
Yeah. The power of that is really incredible. And I think that a lot of us take for granted, oh, no, I know I have a purpose statement. I have a vision statement. I have a this, I have a that.
Yeah.
And look, I'm going to look it up in this book and I'm going to tell you what it is. Right.
Yeah.
And you're laughing because that's literally how so many people do it.
Yeah.
And I think you're talking about something that's much more intentional and much more rigorous as a practice than
Yes.
simply holding it in a book.
Yes, and something that you don't remember. I always say to people, your purpose in life should never be dependent on someone or something. Because if that someone or something goes away, then you have no purpose. Quite often people will say, oh, my purpose in life is my business and my family. My family and my business. But what if you sold your business? Now that's gone. And God forbid should something happen to your family and you don't have a family anymore. What would your purpose be now? You'd have no purpose. And you see that, in older generations, maybe in our parents or grandparents where, typically in the women where, they were groomed to be mothers, wives and then mothers raising kids. They weren't encouraged to go to school or get educated and get a job and pursue a career. Society, at least in South Asian cultures, didn't encourage that. They grew up being amazing, providers for the family, for the husband, for the kids. And then the kids grow up, the kids leave the home, and then they get old at some point. They go, what's my purpose in life? There's no purpose. And then the husband dies and the kids have moved on. And then they're sitting there by themselves going, I have no greater purpose in life. And not only for women, men go through this too as well. People work and then they retire and then they don't do anything with their lives and they have no greater purpose. And then they're just, loitering around the house endlessly all day. So your purpose should never be dependent on someone or something. And if that someone or something goes away, then you have no purpose.
Yeah. And so does, there are lots of methods to find your purpose, but how often, let's assume that you've created a purpose, and I want to get to creating it in a second, but let's say, because many people are going to be listening and saying, I have my purpose. I know what my purpose is, and it's not dependent on someone or something, or they can refine it and they scratch it out right away. And they're like, okay, great. Dandapani told me to scratch it out. So I'm going to scratch it out. I'm refining it. How often should we be connected with that purpose? Because clarity doesn't come by happenstance.
No. The analogy I use that, if I met you, Govind, and I wanted to get to know you, how would I do that? Wikipedia you, Google you, stalk you on Instagram, but if I really want to get to know you, just say every Friday you and I went out for a glass of wine or a meal and we spent 2 hours together. After a year, we would know each other really well. Initially, the conversations would be very surface level, like, are you married? You got kids? What do you do? Do you have a favorite sports team? That kind of stuff. But as the weeks go on, we'd get to know each other in a much deeper, profound way. When do we ever have those conversations with ourselves? And I don't mean meditation, but actually spending time with ourselves in self-inquiry. What do I want in life? We don't. People say, oh, I spend time with myself when I walk my dog. I said, no, that's walking dog and picking up poop along the way. Or when I'm at the gym, I spend time with myself. No, that's exercising, working out. Why is it so hard to just sit in a room with no headphones, no books, no nothing, just spend time with yourself and genuinely ask yourself, what do I want? And now you may not have answers the first day, but over a period of time you would if you consistently practice it. But people won't do that. It's too simple. And if it's too simple, it cannot possibly be giving you value. But if I told you to sit on the ground, put your right leg around your neck, breathe out of your left nostril while chanting this mantra, which I'll sell to you for $5,000, that they will do.
Right. Crazy. But it's true. So, one of the things that I think is really interesting when you said that, sit in a room quietly and spend time with ourselves and think about what you want. We do that for the things we don't want pretty openly. Like we'll sit there and spend hours hating on something.
Yep.
Right? But not
just think about it from a company level, right? If entrepreneurs are listening to this, if I wanted to create a brand for my company, I might hire a branding company. They would come in. They're just not going to sit there and go like, okay, your tagline is this is your color, this is your font. No. A good branding company will interview you, interrogate you, take all that data, go away, come back again, share it with you, and it'll be a back and forth for a few months till finally they come up. Your color is orange, your font is this, this is your logo, these are 3 variants of your logo, and this is your tagline, and you should always use this. But they can only come up with that after they properly get to know you. Who's your customer? What are your values? What are your services you're providing? What matters to you? All that kind of stuff. So even when branding a company, we go to that extent. But when it comes to ourselves, we don't do that work. No one wants to put in the time. They always want to parallel it with something else. I'll do it while I'm driving. I'll do it while I'm walking. Obviously, you're not as so important that you're willing to dedicate time every day to spend with yourself.
And what if we did? Like, what if we did? So if the practice was instead spending time on focusing on what you want. And one of the things that, I think in the prelude to our conversation, we were checking in with each other because, our relationship goes back now many, many years.
Yeah.
And you were checking in on me and I was checking in on you on a personal level.
Yeah.
And we've had some hard times. You've had some challenging situations as well. And I was sharing ours with you and I was sharing mine. One of the things that I've taken as a practice deeply is every single day I'm journaling with myself, no distractions, no nothing, literally putting myself in the middle of what I want and writing about it, writing about what it looks like, what it sounds like, what it feels like, what it smells like, what it tastes like, what that really feels like in the middle of what I want. Living my purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the kind of thing you're talking about?
Yes, but more structured, because if you just journaled every day, then today you could be journaling about the great meal you had yesterday. Tomorrow you could be journaling about the time you spent with a friend, or the next day with your family, and then the next day about some business insight you had. But what is the goal? For me, the goal is that get to know who you are, what it is you want in this life, clarity of purpose and clarity of priorities, front end that work, and then spend the rest of your life living in alignment with that. You're a business owner. You know what your niche is. You know what services you provide, what products you provide. you know that the narrower you get with that, probably the better you do. A person that's building mobile applications is not going to sell lawnmowers the next day. He or she knows how to build mobile applications, and that's what they do. That's their specialty. And they want to go narrow and deep with that. So I think with us, it's no different. Why don't we do front end the work, figure out what it is we want in this life, what are our priorities, and then we can spend the rest of our life living in alignment with that. And then if something comes our way, an opportunity comes our way, or somebody comes our way, we can go, well, it's not really aligned with what I want in my life, so I'm not going to pursue it. All driven by the fact that we have a finite amount of life, finite amount of time on this planet. So how do I want to use it?
Yeah. And the beauty is it's not short, like you said, right? It's not short. So
Life is not
if you haven't done it yet, you can do it now. There's no stopping you from setting these priorities and know what you want, figure out what you want, spend that time, invest that time, right?
Why wouldn't you? If you did this work now and you spend 6 months doing it and you had clarity, crystal clear clarity of your purpose and your priorities, imagine what the coming decades would look like in your life. Because then people always talk, you hear people say things like, it's okay to say no, How do you say no when you don't even know what you're saying yes to? Purpose allows you to know what you're saying yes to in life, which then gives you the clarity of knowing what you don't want in life and who you don't want in your life, what to say no to. I have no trouble making decisions because I know what it is I want. And because I know what I want, I know what I don't want and who I don't want in my life. And I can very gently and kindly and lovingly say no.
And that's people talk about this, I think, a lot. They say the brutal truth. And it's not, doesn't have to be a brutal truth.
Why does it have to be brutal?
Right.
You can do it with gentleness, with kindness, with empathy, and decline.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I submit that you can be kinder about all of those things if you know your purpose. Because what you're really saying is, I'm not the right person for you, as opposed to you're wrong, you're bad for me, blah, 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 blah. No, it's I'm not right for you because I want this and you want something else. And that's okay.
Yeah. So for me, the word I like to use, and I'm glad you brought up the good and bad, because people typically think that's wrong or this is right. For me, it's all about alignment. Some people find heavy metal music uplifting and others don't. So is heavy metal music bad? No, I'm just unaligned with it. But for somebody else, it's uplifting. So once you have clarity of what you want in life, then it's just easier to align. And like you said, hey, I don't really want this. You do it because obviously it's something that you want, and I can do so with kindness. And it doesn't have to be brutal truth.
So let's talk about how someone would clear the lens and get to that place of clarity, living a purpose-focused life. How do we get to that place that we know that our purpose is clean and simple enough that we can focus on it?
We start by learning how to focus. Because if I can't keep my concentration on one thing for an extended period of time, how will I get to know it? So I have my book here. It's, 300 something pages. And imagine this was my mind. And I flicked through the book like this. What would I read? Absolutely nothing. So imagine if I'm just bouncing around my mind every time I sit down in the self-reflection period, I would learn nothing. But if I opened the book and I could stay focused just on one page and just read that one page, I would learn a lot. So if a person were to say, okay, I'm going to spend 5 minutes every morning in self-reflection and conversation with myself, and they're able to do that. They get up in the morning, they answer the call of nature, they find a quiet space in their house, they sit down, they start a timer, 5 minutes with myself. They say, okay, what do I want in life? And because they can't concentrate, now they start thinking about Yeah, I think I should go to the gym after work. I should pick up a coffee on the way to work today. I got long meetings back to back, so I should probably grab 2 coffees, and probably get some breakfast as well. Oh, yeah, that's right. I was reflecting on my life. What was it I was thinking about? Yes. What do I want in life? Oh, shoot, I need to send that text to Joe. I was supposed to send it last night. I didn't send it. So that 5 minutes now becomes the scattering of the mind all over the place. So if you can't focus, you can't stay on something long enough to actually get to know it. The same way, if you and I, going back to that analogy, if you and I met every Friday for 2 hours for a meal, but if I couldn't concentrate on what you're saying, how would I be able to hear the words coming out of your mouth and then get to know you? Because as you were talking, I would be drifting off somewhere in my head, thinking about something else. So focus is a fundamental skill that gives us the ability to self-reflect in unbroken continuity, basically, to discover who we are and what we want.
And it is the foundation. Focus is the foundation.
Yeah.
Because
But how would
otherwise,
you get to know your children if you can't even focus on them for 20 seconds?
that's right.
You couldn't.
You
Right.
couldn't.
People talk about reading books and, attending seminars and workshops, but if you can't focus, I can attend every workshop by all the top experts in the world that I want to learn from. I can sit in the workshop for 2 hours, but if I can't even focus for 5 seconds, how can I even consume what they're sharing with me? I couldn't. I remember when I wrote my book and my agent got me, some interviews with some publishers, and one publisher asked me, "Why do you think your book is important?" I said, "Besides the ability to read, my book is the second most important thing in the world." He goes, "Well, that's a little arrogant of you to say so."
That's right.
I'm like, "Okay." I said, "How many books have you published?" He goes, "Thousands." And I go, "What is the point of any of your books if I can't even open the page and stay focused on it long enough to absorb the information?" First, your books are useful first if I can read. If I can't read, they're useless. The second skill I need is focus. I need to be able to open the book and actually stay with those sentences long enough to consume the information. But if I can't even focus, your books are useless. He goes, "Valid point, And we never taught that skill. And part of discovering who we are is being able to stay focused on ourselves long enough to really discover, what are our hurdles? What do we want in life? What are we passionate about? Why are we here on this planet? Who matters? What matters?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember so many years ago, you talked about building will. And
Yes.
as another one of the foundational tools, and you're smiling already because what I'm going to say, because you went around the world telling people to make their beds, and
Yes.
all of these entrepreneurs all of a sudden started making their beds, and you got countless thank you messages from their spouses saying, "Oh my God, my spouse is taking care of our bedroom. It's so great." I to this day, I cannot leave our bedroom without making our bed. And it is in these little tasks, is it not,
Yeah.
that we can learn
Yes.
how to build the willpower, the strength, the sort of the foundational strength to learn to focus or to bring yourself to focus. Is that not right? Or
Absolutely.
have I got it backwards?
No, this is absolutely correct. So if you look in a simple definition of willpower, not an accurate one, you could say, like, if I could draw biceps on either side of my mind, that would be my willpower. So it'd be mental muscle. It would be a simple way that I would describe to kids what's willpower. I said, imagine if I could draw biceps on either side of my.
I'm not gonna point out the fact that that's the way you described it to me, and then said that that's the way you describe it to kids. But that's okay. That's all right. I'll take it.
That's the easiest way to learn. I feel, Govind, educators make things, or experts, I don't consider myself an expert, but make things complicated to sound very intelligent.
Right.
And I think for me, the question I always ask myself, why am I sharing this? If the intent is to help somebody, then keep it simple so they can understand it, grasp it, make it part of their thinking in life, and then create change. If I'm there to entertain you with, medical terms and scientific terms and data and report, then, I don't know, go to Vegas and have a show, but that's not my intent. So for me, it's always keeping it simple. So willpower would be, if I could draw biceps around my mind, that would be my willpower. Every time my attention or my awareness drifts away, and I use the word awareness drifts away, I use those biceps to bring it back. And the way to develop willpower is to finish what you begin. And one way to do this consistently in our life is to actually integrate it into our day. So rather than, Govind, if I said to you, you need to wake up tomorrow morning at 5:30 and do yoga and meditate, you're going to go like, dude, do that for like 3 days and then stop. But every day we do things that are non-negotiable, what I call non-negotiable reoccurring events. Every day you speak with your spouse, with your kids. Every day you brush your teeth. Every day you eat something or drink something in your house. So if you have a cup of coffee, wash the coffee cup. Every day you sleep. When you wake up, make the bed. So now you're tying the action to a reoccurring event in your daily life. So you're not adding one more thing. You're just doing what you're doing differently, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. So it's completing what you started. And the act of making your bed, for example, is completing your sleep.
Yes, exactly. Completing your sleep. And every time you complete what you start, you develop willpower. Because it takes more effort at the end of a project than at the beginning of a project. At the start, everyone's inspired, enthusiastic, full of creativity and idea and energy. Halfway through, someone's going like, whose idea was this? And then it takes effort to finish something up. And whenever you finish whatever it is, it's exciting to host a dinner for close friends. You clean the house, you make a nice meal, everyone comes over, you have a nice meal, you have a couple glasses of wine, then everyone leaves and you go like, holy crap, got to clean up everything. That's hard. But the act of actually cleaning up the kitchen and wiping everything away and putting everything away is finishing dinner. And that requires willpower. And the more willpower you can build, the more you can hold your attention on one thing for an extended period of time.
So if and this is, I think, a really important thing to think about.
Yeah.
If people are having a hard time with focus, start to finish what you start. Like just finish it. And I think that also people misunderstand the power of your unconscious mind, and they don't realize that once you make your unconscious mind very acutely aware of the fact that you're going to finish what you start, it'll help you. It'll remind you, you've got to see this through. You've got to go do this.
The subconscious is based on patterns, right? So whatever you repeat over and over again, that's a pattern that's created. If you don't wear your flip-flops or your shoes into your house, and every time you return home, you take your shoes off and you line it up properly, that's all it knows how to do. It doesn't know how to kick it all over the place. So how do we identify these acts throughout our whole day that we do already and start doing them slightly differently to build focus and to build willpower? And
you can start anywhere, can't you?
Start with anything. It doesn't even have to be make the bed, right? I use that as an example because everyone sleeps. I have breakfast at home, and after I finish breakfast, I wash the breakfast dish and put it away.
That's right.
Finish the act of having breakfast.
So whatever it is, finish the act.
Yeah.
Now, what are the? I know that for a lot of people, there's a bit of a scope creep when it comes to losing focus. So people will build focus and be hyper focused for a period of time.
Yeah.
But it's little things that can erode that focus over time and take us off our path. Is it not true?
Yes.
Like even it's something that has to be maintained. It's not something. It's not a one and done. Correct?
No, because I have what I call the law of practice, and what it states is that whatever you practice is what you end up becoming good at. So focus is almost like a muscle, right? If I practice focus for 10 years, I don't have to keep trying to be focused. I'm naturally in a state of focus because whatever I practice, I become good at. My subconscious knows to keep my awareness, my attention on one thing until I choose to move it to something else. But then now I start slacking off and I start multitasking and texting on my phone while I'm talking to somebody, and I start another practice of being distracted. Then, 5 years later, I'm all over the place. So whatever it is you practice is what you become good at, and you have to maintain the practice. But at the end of the day, why do we want to focus? And I think for me, that's the biggest thing to drive home. Because if you tell someone to focus, they go like, yeah, why should I focus? Yeah, I know I need to focus, but yeah, whatever, man. That's not like life or death. I want to focus so that I can get the most out of life. If I spend an hour with you, having a meal with you, I want to give you my undivided attention so that in that whole hour, I'm completely present. I can hear every word you say. I can feel your energy. I can be completely there, and I get the most out of life. People go through their entire lives being physically present all the time, but mentally absent. And now you look back on your life and you go, it feels very unfulfilling. I very intentionally choose what I want to do throughout the day, who I want to spend time with. And when I'm spending time with that person or that thing, I'm completely present through my ability to focus so that I can fully enjoy it. Like I am here. I am nowhere else. I'm right here, right this moment. And what a gift. And
What a
not
gift.
only for the other person, but for me as well, because now I go like, my whole day feels very, very full. And should I die one day, I'll look back and go, wow, that was a really full life. And it was a full, rewarding life because I had the ability to focus, which allowed me to be present in every experience that I intentionally chose for myself throughout my whole life.
And isn't that for leaders, for entrepreneurs, and for everyone, isn't that the greatest gift we can give
Amazing.
to
Yes,
someone, all of ourselves, to a situation, whatever that happens to be, to a person, to an
absolutely.
environment, to a place?
But entrepreneurs have this bad habit, and they have this thing that they like to say is that, oh, I have ADD because I'm an entrepreneur. It's almost like a cop-out. I'm an entrepreneur. Because I'm an entrepreneur, I'm allowed to be all over the place. Why do you have to be that way? I remember, Govind, being in a car with this guy that took his family business from, I don't know how many million to $1.6 billion over like 30 years, And we were in a car for an hour and a half. And the whole time he gave me his undivided attention. Didn't look at his phone. We had complete conversation. You know the Oberoi hotels in India?
Yes. Yeah.
A friend of mine, his dad took him to see Mr. Oberoi, who founded the Oberoi Hotel. And my friend was young at that time, and he asked Mr. Oberoi, he told me the story, what's one thing you can teach me? He said, be completely present in everything that you do in your life. He said, when I'm here with you and your father, I am completely here. I'm nowhere else. I am always where I am. I'm completely focused on where I am. And that's the greatest gift you can give. So for me, I think it's so easy for entrepreneurs to use this excuse that as an entrepreneur, I'm allowed to be all over the place. Why do you have to be that way? Why can't you say, I'm an entrepreneur and I'm completely present in all of my engagements? We should change the narrative. I'm an entrepreneur. I run my own business. And if I'm talking to you, I'm not looking at my phone. It's not even on the table.
Yeah. And I think that that's something that, and I think it's a gift that we can give to others, our full presence.
Yes.
But it's a gift that we give to ourselves first, isn't it?
Absolutely. And you think like, wow, you're spending time to carve out 2 hours to be with this person or to have this experience. And you're spending money potentially to have that experience. Yeah, you're physically there because you're always physically there, but you're mentally absent. So why even bother spending time with that person? Stay home, And then you go through life physically present in all these things you created, but mentally absent. Now you feel unfulfilled.
And
I don't want to die, Govind, one day looking back in my life and go like, what was that about? I want to look back and go, man, that was jam-packed full of good stuff. And I was present in all of my engagements with people, with things, sitting on the beach, laying on the beach. I'm completely focused on doing nothing.
But that starts with us, and sort of bring it back full circle. We start doing this with ourselves,
Yes.
focusing on ourselves, learning to take that time and truly focusing on what do you want? What is your purpose? What is my purpose? What do I want? What does it look like for me? What do I like? What do I not like?
When you're going to the airport and you pull, your Uber pulls up to the airport and you grab your luggage and get out of the airport. If you had 3 hours before your flight, you'd take your time. You wouldn't be rushing. If you had 30 minutes before your flight departed and you just pulled up at the curb, you're not going to go to stand in Starbucks for 20 minutes in line for coffee. You'd get through security and customs, immigration, whatever it needs to be to get to your gate. I look at life the same way. My life is finite. It's not infinite. I don't have an endless amount of time on this planet. I don't know when I'm going to die. And I don't think that we all die when we're old. We could die at any point in time. And because that's so clear in my mind, I'm not afraid of dying. I just don't want to waste time. And my life is such a precious gift. And every minute, every moment I have is such a gift for me that I feel that I need to use it wisely. So where am I going to invest that time? And what am I going to invest it in? And focus allows me to do that. The byproduct of that is, I live a deeply fulfilling life. And not all my choices are good. I make bad choices too, but that's okay. Yeah.
That's amazing. And your presence is a gift to me, Dandapani. And
Thank you. As is yours.
this is a point of the conversation which is very appropriate for what we're talking about, because a mutual friend, John Rulin, was taken from us too early about a year and a bit ago. Ever since then, we evoke his napkin to us 11 years ago, which was, what you appreciate appreciates. I appreciate you. And the idea is that when you appreciate someone and do it vocally with the intention of what's the most I can do in this moment, great things happen for them and for you eventually, but most importantly in that moment.
Yeah.
So we've been ending every podcast since then asking our guests to shout out somebody. Who would you like to shout out, Dandapani?
I would say you. And I'm not doing this because we're having this podcast together, but truly, I left the monastery, 15, 16 years ago. And I think 3 years into it, you'd invited me to speak at this EO event. And I know there was some pushback from other people. I was like, who's this guy? And you somehow deeply believed in my message and what I had to offer. And you had told me that on a call. You had even emailed me that. And, I believe in you and I believe in what you're doing. And I want you to come and I'm going to make it happen. And you made it happen. And then the first event I went and spoke with after that was in Ottawa at your chapter, And then since then, I've been speaking all over the world to EO and YPO and companies, and, it just grew from that. But that really opened the door to connecting with some amazing leaders. That was the beginning. And had you not opened that door, I'm not sure when it would have opened or how it would have opened. But so I'm very, very grateful for that, Govind. And I always hold a special place in my heart for that gift, but also for you and who you are and, your friendship in my life.
I'm very humbled to hear that. Thank you, Dandapani.
Deeply grateful.
I am too. Thank you, Dandapani. And as we close this conversation, you might notice something that feels a little clearer, not louder, not dramatic, just clearer. Because when someone reminds you that life isn't short, but it's finite, it tends to gently rearrange priorities. Dandapani's napkin was simple, but profound, living a purpose-focused life. And yet inside that simplicity came these 5 powerful thoughts and truths. Life is finite, not short. When you truly accept that time is limited, you naturally become more intentional about where you want to invest it. Your purpose must not depend on someone or something.
Roles change. Businesses change, evolve. People leave. Purpose has to be rooted in something much deeper than circumstance. And focus is the foundation. You cannot discover who you are if you cannot stay with yourself long enough to listen. Willpower is built through completion. Finish what you start. Make the bed. Wash the cup. Complete the act. Small completions strengthen your mental discipline. Presence creates fulfillment. A life feels full not because of how much you did, but because of how present you were for all of it. And as you reflect on those, you might begin to notice where your attention goes throughout the day. You might become aware of the moments you're physically present, but mentally elsewhere. You might find yourself gently choosing differently. Because once you recognize that your life is a finite gift, something inside you naturally wants to use it more wisely. So, Dandapani, again, thank you for your clarity, your discipline, your unwavering commitment to presence and to focus. And now I'll leave you with one quiet invitation. Take a napkin and write one sentence on it. What would living a purpose-focused life look like for me? Don't overthink it. Just write it. Guess if you don't know the answer. And if this episode resonated with you, subscribe, but most importantly, share it with someone who might need it and leave a review. Because sometimes a simple thought captured intentionally can change the trajectory of decades. Until next time, stay aligned, stay present, and turn those small ideas into big results. And make it a great day.